speaking of chocolate, I have another little story to tell you. My first two children, the ones that were in the story about the preschool, they were both born at the end of February, and it was always a custom of mine to get them some leftover Valentine candy for their birthday presents. And so when I read this little story, I was immediately drawn to it. It's about a woman named Linda and her husband, whose name was Dawn. Now, Dawn's birthday was near the end of February, and they had the same tradition that we had. Linda would always make sure that whatever she got for Dawn for his birthday, it would include some cut-rate, bargain price Valentine chocolate. And there were some sort of unspoken rules about what she was to get. Heart-shaped box, well, of course. And so they were often red, right? Occasionally white or pink or purple, but usually red. Sometimes quilted, sometimes velvet. They often had lace trimming around them. And then you could kind of get extra points, not real points, but virtual points for any other embellishments, like large red satin bows or flowers of some sort. A plastic rose would be good, or several of the faux silk flowers. And anything else that would be additional would be extra great. And the rule was that it had to be at least 50% off. If it was more than 50% off, that would be even better. So, at the time of this story, it was the end of February, and Linda had set aside a morning to go and get the birthday presents for Dawn. She went to the mall, where she bought a CD that he'd been wanting, and she also bought a couple of shirts that she'd been wanting him to want, and a few other things. She had them in a shopping bag with a handle, and then she went to get the chocolate. Now, she couldn't get the chocolate at the mall. That was way too fancy. You had to get the chocolate at some place. Well, it couldn't be See's, for example. It couldn't be Godiva. Maybe not even Dove. It had to be, Hershey or Nestle or perhaps Russell Stover. And it really would be best if it were purchased at a store that was open 24 hours a day, like 7-Eleven or maybe Rite Aid or something like that. So she went into nearby CVS, and there at the very end of one of the aisles, she saw all the things that were left over from Valentine's Day, and they were 75% off. And she found an enormous heart-shaped box, red velvet, big bow, and if you pushed a button, it played music. Can't get enough of your love, babe. She thought that was just going to be perfect. And so she bought it and took it back to the car, set it on top of the shopping bag that was in the back seat of her car, on top so that it wouldn't smush the big bow that was on it. And she started for home, feeling very, very pleased with herself. And she was in such a good mood that she did something that she had never done before. She saw a woman walking, really hobbling, she had kind of a limp, along the side of the road. No obvious destination in sight. And Linda pulled over and asked the woman if she wanted a ride. Well, the woman accepted graciously and gratefully in a heavily accented English. And she got in the car. And Linda noticed that the woman noticed the shopping bag on the back seat of the car and looked kind of quizzically at the big heart-shaped box of candy. And so by way of explanation, Linda said, I got that for my husband. And the woman nodded. And she told her where she was going, which was a senior center just a few blocks away. They rode along in silence. Finally, Linda stopped at the senior center, and the woman got out and thanked her for the ride. And then, with a nod to the sack in the back seat of the car, she said, "So, you got for husband. Good trade."